Nutrition Heretic. Facebook Live Q&A.
All right, and we're live, and welcome to the Nutrition Heretic Facebook Live. I am sorry, everybody. I totally screwed up for Dr. Terry Wahls. She's our special guest for this week, and you may remember her about a year ago. I didn't even realize it was about a year ago when we last spoke, although I think your episode released later than that. But yeah, it was about a year ago that we last spoke, and you look fabulous.
Thank
your
you.
Story. Tell everybody your story for those of them who either don't remember or don't know you at all.
So I'm an academic internal medicine doc, professor of medicine, and I thought complementary alternative medicine was a bunch of hooey, a lot of wasted money and resources, and I was very skeptical. Then I'm diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. Being an academic doc, I'm going to treat my disease very aggressively. And so I see the best people in the country, the Cleveland Clinic, take the newest drugs. And still within 3 years, my disease had transitioned. I need a tilt-recline wheelchair. I'm taking chemotherapy, still going downhill. Then I take that new, very exciting drug. That's a biologic drug, Tysabri. Continue to go downhill. I'm taken off that. I put on a different disease-modifying drug. And it's really clear that the best medicine has to offer is not stopping the slide into a bedridden and quite possibly demented life. And that's when I began reading the science, the basic science, and would begin experimenting on myself, at first with vitamins and supplements. I switched to a paleo diet after being a vegetarian for 20 years. And I slowed the speed of my decline, but I was not getting better. I did figure out that if I missed my vitamins and supplements, I could not function at all, couldn't get out of bed. And I discovered the Institute for Functional Medicine, took their course, had a longer list of vitamins and supplements. And then I had this really big aha moment, which I'm sure you appreciate, in that, I should redesign my paleo diet to get the nutrition from food that I was taking from vitamins and supplements. So again, that's more research. And I did that in the fall of 2007. And the transformation was really quite remarkable. At my worst, I could not sit up like I am now. I had severe pain that was difficult to control. I was beginning to struggle with brain fog. I had profound fatigue, was exhausted by 10 in the morning. And it was a struggle to walk, 20 feet with two walking sticks. Otherwise, I was in a tilt-recline wheelchair, in a zero-gravity chair, in a recliner, or in bed.
Right. I don't mean to sound facetious, but was it odd for you as a physician doing your rounds at the hospital or wherever in a wheelchair? Like,
that was tough.
Did you feel that you were like not inspiring confidence at all?
I was had my bevy of medical students and residents that I was working with. But yeah, that was certainly challenging.
Right.
But, and then it was remarkable. So I redesigned my diet, and within 3 months, my fatigue is gone, my brain fog is gone, my energy is clearly improving. At 6 months, I'm walking with a cane, and at 9 months, I get up on a bike around the block, first time in probably about 6 years. And then at 12 months, I'm able to do a 20-mile bike ride with my family.
Whoa.
So
I don't even do that.
Yeah, so this really changes how I think about disease and health. It would change the way I practice medicine. And it would ultimately change the focus of the research that I do. And that's 10 years ago. All this was happening 10 years ago.
Right. So why did you feel compelled, or what was it that made you say, like, just straight up paleo isn't doing it? I don't know if you were, 10 years ago, if you were privy to like the GAPS diet, anything like that, these other kinds of diets. What was it that made you realize that there was still a place
There's still more to go.
Something else? Yeah. Somewhere else to go.
So the timing is in 2000, I'm diagnosed. In 2001, early 2002, my neurology physicians told me about the paleo diet. And as a vegetarian, 20 years. So I read all these papers, read the books, and decided that it made sense. There's a scientific rationale. So I made that dietary change. I continued to decline, but I stuck with it because I figured it could take a long time to repair all the damage. And at least
it didn't happen overnight.
I was doing something. And the only other diet that was out there for MS was the swank diet. But I stayed with the paleo diet, added the vitamin supplements that was helpful. And then when I structured the paleo diet, we just had these phenomenal results.
Wow. Okay, so then your diet, I guess, compared to some of the other diets that we've interviewed people with on the show, that claim to be more, I shouldn't say more, but they claim to basically not, I'm going to use kind of harsh terminology, but not to be a life sentence, right? Because everybody's afraid, like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to have another birthday cake. I'm never going to be able to, go out drinking with the guys, whatever their thing is.
Right.
Do you feel that this diet heals on the level that one day they can occasionally indulge in those things, or?
Well, it depends on the circumstances. The diet's certainly designed to give great nutrition for the brain, for the mitochondria, to have all the building blocks we need to run the chemistry of life. Depending on the circumstance, if they've developed a food sensitivity to the protein in grain called gluten, that sensitivity is never going to go away. If you've had a sensitivity, say, to another food, be it citrus or tomatoes, and you take that out for 6 months, those sensitivities often go away. But sensitivity to the protein in wheat, rye, barley, once you're sensitized, you tend to have that forever. And if you've been sensitized to the protein in dairy, you'll likewise have that forever. The other sensitivities may in fact go away, however.
Right. So, one of the things I really appreciated about your protocol, and I love the fact that it's not a diet, it's a protocol, that you've got 3 different levels of it, and you really streamlined it in a way that I haven't seen. I don't believe, all the books that I've read, I don't believe I've seen anyone streamline it quite the way that you do. In that, usually there's like a little asterisk that says, this is good for stage, whatever of our diet, or this is, appropriate if you, have, let's say, the gluten and dairy intolerance type of thing. But what I really like is how you really give templates for each recipe, and you give the 3 stages of severity, I guess, and how deeply you want to go. Now, can you explain what those 3 protocols are and how they apply to different individuals?
So I think about this from a public health perspective, and that most people are coming at it from a standardized Western diet, heavy in sugar, heavy in grain, low in vegetables. And so the level 1 is you take out the gluten grain, ramp up the vegetables, and that's really the big concept. I also suggest taking out dairy, because if you're sensitive to gluten, you're probably also sensitive to the dairy. So that's a step 1 diet. And really for 80% of the folks that we see in our clinics, that has a marked improvement in health. People have less pain, more energy, blood sugars improve, blood pressures improve, weight tends to melt away. And for many, that's all they need to do. If they have more serious health challenges, or they want to get to the next level, then we talk about fermented foods, organ meats. I have them add some seaweed, and we talk about soaking and sprouting nuts. Again, another level of health improvement occurs at this next level. And then for people who have a severe neurologic problem, cognitive loss, seizures, brain cancer, cancer themselves, or a neurological problem that's not gotten adequately well on the level 2, then we put them in a ketosis, that's nutritional ketosis. So we up the fats, lower the carbs, lower the protein, and that's the next level diet. There's actually also a fourth level that's in there as well, and that's where you take out the nightshades, tomatoes, potatoes, eggplants, and take out go grain free. And for people who have rheumatoid arthritis, inflammatory bowel disease, they'll probably have to go to that level. Gluten, I would remove permanently. Dairy, you likely will need to remove permanently, but you could try after 6 months, seeing how well you do. And the cheeses will be best tolerated. Dairy that is Guernsey, Brown Swiss, goat will be better tolerated. The Holstein will be the least well tolerated. Other foods that you take out for 3 to 6 months, you may be able to reintroduce. So if you do have to take out the nightshades, the tomatoes, potatoes, peppers, likely you can reintroduce them after 3 to 6 months. But if you take them out and reintroduce them, I would have them maybe once or twice a week. I would not try daily because I think that's likely to not go well.
Yeah, I've often recommended people go onto a rotational basis. So, like, I usually just say just set one day of the week. That way, it's no confusion. Sunday's my tomato day. Or whatever.
Right, it's much easier to keep track of, and it's easier to live with that way.
Exactly, and then you're not having it every other day, and then gradually you're having it 3 times a day again. So let me see. I had a couple other questions for you. Oh, you have, you know what I was impressed with was your selection of smoothies. Because just when I thought that you couldn't have come up with another smoothie recipe, you had more. What are some of the benefits of consuming the smoothies? What are you finding? How does that help people?
A lot of folks are pressed for time. My son and I were talking this morning. He says, he can't really make breakfast and get to the gym in time. And so he's really glad to have his Vitamix out. So he has a morning smoothie, mix it all up, and then drinks his breakfast on the way to the gym. And so for many of us, we're pressed for time in the morning. So a smoothie is a great way to start the day for that. It's also a really lovely way to get more greens very easily into your day. And when we're first getting our kids fired up about vegetables, it can be easier for kids. For example, the Green Goddess smoothie, where you have parsley, green grapes, you put that together. It's really quite lovely. And I remember when my daughter was in high school as a sophomore, I went and gave a talk to her sophomore biology class, and I made Green Goddess smoothies for them. And the kids were like, well, actually, this does taste pretty good, so. So it's another way of having vegetables that are easy to prepare, consume, and are probably more acceptable to our kids.
Right. Well, actually, you just gave me an idea, because I've taken over teaching just real food cooking classes to kids at my kids' school. And, we're doing all kinds of ethnic foods and what have you, but really just anything that gets them introduced to the fact that, it doesn't have to come under plastic, and it doesn't have to, be just all this processed stuff or powders. A lot of the foods that they were preparing it with their previous teacher were, just nut butters and powders. Yeah. And so I'm trying to show them stuff like that. So we may, I was kind of shying away from the juicing, but then I'm thinking, smoothie, like some of the ones that you have, may just be the ticket to introduce to them. So now here's something that I think a lot of people are going to be pleasantly surprised with, which is that you have chocolate cacao in your recipe. It could be
very yummy, yeah.
Not carob, because a lot of anti-inflammatory diets and what's the one I'm thinking of? I guess it's the one that GAPS is based on, which is, I'm totally drawing a blank on it right now. Yeah. But a lot of these diets will tell you that you cannot have chocolate. You would have carob instead. What are the benefits there, and what do you see as acceptable?
Chocolate has a lot of polyphenols in it that are really great antioxidants. Now, you want to be sure that it's organic, because conventionally grown cacao has a lot of pesticide, herbicide use with it. but the organic cocoa has great antioxidant levels, comparable to blueberries. And so this really can be a very nourishing food. You don't want to have a lot of dairy and sugar with it, but I'll make a lovely smoothie with a green banana, cocoa, cinnamon, and coconut milk, and this feels like a dessert. And if I add a little flaxseed to it, I can make it into a chocolate pudding and an avocado. Also, it just feels like a lovely, lovely dessert. So
right.
No reason to not have cocoa as long as it's organic. Might as well enjoy it.
Yeah. And your book also goes beyond just the day-to-day, because it's very easy for someone to put together their diet book and say, eat this, 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 and that. And they give you some kind of lame guidelines about, like, when you go to a restaurant, ask for this, but 9 times out of 10, that's not even available in a lot of areas, right? Some of those options you talk to the server about how you'd like your food prepared or what you don't want on it, and they look at you like a deer in headlights because they've never heard of that before, right? But you give not only you give people their lives back. So the holidays, the birthdays, Halloween, you talk about summer barbecues, like all of those things, and how they can still stay true to this, but live in that world as well.
And I also am mindful that the people I took care of in my clinics were sometimes living on food stamps. So we talked about how to do this economically. We talked about the limits of time that I assume that people are working, and that they would like to be eating within half an hour, so within 40 minutes of starting. And so that's a hallmark of, as I think about this, I want people to be able to cook without exotic ingredients, and be able to get food on the table quickly.
Right. And actually, one thing I really loved was in the Halloween recipe, section, you talk about the fruit jigglers. And and what I like about that is that it has a very old-timey feel to it. So when we were kids, you actually, Easter time, you dip the eggs and you do all of that stuff together. There's not a lot of those kind of things going on anymore. So it seems like it's, especially if you have children in your life, that it gives you that one-on-one time with them that maybe a lot of people aren't getting anymore with some of these, preparing the holiday meals and having to do all of this stuff yourself.
And I do talk about, and again, when I teach my classes, people are asking, how do I get my kids involved doing this? And so I'll ask, do your kids play video games? And I'll go, yes. Do they have smartphones? Yes. I said, okay. Those kids, therefore, can be helping you with household chores. They can be helping you set the table, prepare the meals, shop, and they should be doing chores, because these are life skills we need to pass on to our children. We need to teach our kids to feel comfortable growing into these adult responsibilities and to feel comfortable cooking. Plus, it's a whole lot easier while you're making it together to talk about how school went and to discuss life and your own life over a task than over the table. That feels like an inquisition, and that's very uncomfortable. Right. But if you're setting the table, making the salad, and you're having a conversation over the task, it's just much more comfortable.
Right. And I think every parent knows that, for example, if my kids get in the car and I say, how was your day? I get grunts and all of that. But as soon as I get ready to work or, start dinner, then they're just, and I can't get anything done. So yeah, you're right. It's when it kind of takes the backdrop.
Right.
To the conversation.
You're talking about your task, and then just sort of accidentally ease into conversations about life and whatever's going on, and that's far more comfortable.
Right, absolutely.
I grew up on a farm, and I realized that we're always working, doing chores and tasks and building stuff, and that was really quite a gift to be able to have all of that time with extended members of your family. talking as you were doing that work.
Right, right, totally. I can definitely see how that would strengthen the family unit.
Yeah.
To have those shared experiences. Another thing that you go into, again, because you even say at the outset of the book that you really, you're giving people like a complete lifestyle plan. So you're also, beyond just the food and the holidays, you're talking about body care, dental hygiene, just, everything, how to make your own shampoo, household cleaning, taking care of your pets, what's best for them. Are these,
a lot of our personal care products have a lot of chemicals added to them that we absorb through our skin and interfere with our hormonal signaling. So I talk about that in the book and explain that these personal care products are incredibly easy to make, easy to prepare, and really much, much safer for us. And again, it's a very fun family activity.
Right. So as a former vegetarian, I'm just going back to what you've mentioned it twice before, that you were a vegetarian for 20 years, and now you've gone the complete opposite. And we've had no shortage of people who are pretty much forced to eat a paleo diet because vegetarianism is strict, or not strict, as adherent as they were to the principles of getting actual nutrition in, as opposed to the crapitarians, who just eat whatever doesn't have animal products in it. Would you say that? I mean, do you have difficulty supporting people when they say, I want to stick to my vegetarian diet and do this?
My research assistant in my first study was a vegetarian and still is a vegetarian for religious beliefs. And so that really forced me to think pretty deeply about this and realize that I needed to provide guidance for people who are committed to staying vegetarian for their religious and personal beliefs. So I wanted to show them, okay, if you're going to do this, here's how you do it more safely. Here's how we can make sure you have sufficient nutrition. Here's how we can reduce your risk of food sensitivities. Here's all the things that we can do to have you still have great health. And so my first level diet can be done as a vegetarian, vegan, or a meat eater. And I also point out that if you're not careful, even the paleo eaters can still make themselves ill. And my ketogenic eaters can make themselves ill. So the reality is all of us can screw it up if we aren't paying attention. I love the paleo diet. I think it's a very healthful diet. But my paleo friends who got the "you could eat meat" message, some of them did hear and you're supposed to eat mostly vegetables message.
Right. I was just letting people know where they can find your book on your website.
Thank you.
And because I know that you've got to go, and I apologize again for starting late, but again, the book is The Wahls Protocol, Cooking for Life. Her name is Terry Wahls at terrywahls.com /about-v-walls-protocol.
All right.
And find all of her books there.
It'll be good. We'll have a big event every fall, every summer. In August, we have a live Wahls Protocol seminar that goes for 3 days, and we'll have links up for that probably the next month that people will be able to begin to learn more about next year's event. So,
and is that in your neck of the woods in Iowa?
It's in Iowa, and I'm right now just sending out my speaker invites and confirming who's going to be speaking. We're going to have some folks, neurology folks talking there. We'll have a couple of pediatricians this year. We're going to have a bunch of conversation about Hashimoto's, about bioidentical hormones. In fact, I think I have someone coming who's going to talk about functional medicine and stem cells. So this will be a very exciting and always a lot of fun. And our goal this year is to see if we can get up to 300. Last year we had 200 and 6 countries represent. So we'll see what we can do next year.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you so much for putting your work out there and for sharing it with the world, because we need more voices like you, particularly because of, no offense, the academics who who think that is a bunch of bunk. But I kind of, I'm not the most religious person, but I do think of disease as a blessing, and it's our wake up call to do something different. So Marilee, you wanted to know if the information about the event is on her website. It will be within the next month, she said.
Yes. We have last year's event up. You can get tickets for next year, but we'll have the lineup and details about next year's event probably the next month. It'll be coming up.
And are you doing any recordings or anything that people can purchase if they can't get there? Downloads, anything like that?
We are investigating the feasibility of doing that. So the answer is I don't know yet, but I'm hopeful that we'll be able to include that.
All right, fantastic. All right, any more parting words before I let you go?
Hail to the kale.
All right, fantastic. Thank you so much for your time, and have a fantastic evening.
Great, thank you. Bye-bye now.
Choose your punishment.